I will call the Essex Junction City Council meeting to order for Wednesday, July 9th. First item on the agenda is any agenda additions, changes.
I do not have any.
Counselors?
None.
All right. So, the entire point of this meeting is to have a public comment session. So we're trying something a little different. We've allotted an hour to just hear feedback, comments, questions, anything that folks want to talk to us about. So anybody is free. If you're online, please raise your hand. Anybody in the room, I'll start here. It's just very casual, so just, you do have to come to the mic because we do need to like record.
Go ahead, Steve.
Come on, Steve.
I'm a nice breaking kind of guy.
We're a nice group of folks. We're not gonna throw anything at you. Come on.
So I had a couple of topics I just wanted to check in on. So I can't remember when, sometime earlier this year, we had talked about the old Colchester Road Tree Farm. And I remember there was an action that a couple counselors were gonna meet with a couple people in the town. And I didn't know, I want to inquire how that turned out, or like, if anything came out of it that was notable, I guess is the way I should phrase it. And my wife and I went there for a walk recently, maybe about a week ago or something, and we noticed like none of the trails were mowed still and stuff. I mean, so like all the field stuff is, you know, it gets a lot of attention, and I brought up multiple times.
Mhm.
Like, when are we going to start paying attention to the other as a missed opportunity in my mind? But anyway, I did so.
Did you see that last year too with no mowing of the trails, or did it like eventually
I think they
happen?
mowed them at least once.
Okay.
By this time of the year is my memory. Certainly by the time school starts, they mow it because the cross-country team is practicing there. But it'd be nice to be able to use them, you know, throughout the non-winter.
Yeah.
As I recall, that the trail mowing is part of a change with another vendor, but I can't remember exactly. So, yeah, it's not done. It wasn't done often based on my knowledge.
Yeah, but anyway, so I don't know if you have any feedback, or I don't know how the discussion part's supposed to work on this.
It's all good.
So
Neither do we, Steve.
Yeah.
This is all very
Okay.
new for us as well.
We're all just learning.
So I can give you an update on where we're at with the tree farm. Essentially, both the select board and the council have taken a look at draft lease and management agreement documents for the tree farm management group, in line with renewing with them based on previous conversations. So those documents are, we're bringing those documents to the tree farm management group this month to continue that discussion, to get under new lease and management agreement with them.
perfect. Okay.
I don't have any specific information about the trails in particular. I do think that the high school cross-country team has been a partner in that in the past, which aligns with what you're describing. So I can certainly ask about the trails during the cross-country times.
Sure. I mean, I have personally mowed the trails myself just because I wanted them clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, people shouldn't have to do that.
Not really your job.
No.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No.
So.
We'll look into
Yeah.
it.
So, okay, so that was topic one. So topic two is just the connect the junction, and I know there's like the stuff to comment on it and stuff, and I read through the plan, which is a lot of good ideas in there. There was a couple and I made a couple comments. There was a couple things in there that I thought were worth pulling on a little bit, and that, like, there was a comment that, geez, traffic volumes have increased a little bit recently, and we need to like discourage traffic. You know, maybe we'll make things slow down and there'll be less people coming through the city. And I was a little, I don't know, surprised by the comment, because part of the thing is, like, look at all the regional plan and all the housing everyone wants built. Well, every time you're building housing, there's more people living here. So this traffic increase could just be people living here, and part of it also is, like, I think we need to do a lot of the ideas in there, like crosswalks and bike lanes and all those things are great, but we need to make sure we don't forget about throughput on cars. Cause like, you're going from Fairview Farms to your friends over on Hiawatha or over to ADL school. Like, you need to be able to like traverse through the community, and sometimes you got either transporting a bunch of kids or things where it's not practical to take a bike or walk. So, just there's not a lot of choices. There's only so many roads around here, and a lot of conservation groups have made it very clear they don't want any roads built. So we have to use the roads we have, and we can't drop the capacity too much. So anyway, so I was just a little alarmed when I heard a couple of those comments. And then also, like, I look at how the Crescent Connector was built, and then I look at the idea, which I think sounds great, to have the Main Street pedestrian. But then I look at how the connector was built, and it's like, there's no way on Maple Street to make a left turn right now. There's no lane. And now picture an 18-wheeler trying to turn left onto Railroad Ave off of Maple from 5 corners. Like, how is that logistically going to work? And then, like, when you're coming up the connector from the south, there's only 1 lane. So if you're going to turn onto Maple, you're sitting there waiting for anybody that's going to go straight. And it feels like there was like all this promise, but then it's all like locked up. And like, so I've tried all the different scenarios just to try them out. And it's just like, it's so much less frustration just to go through 5 corners. But then if we like close 5 corners, now we're hosed. Like, unless we add some turning lanes and things like that. So again, like, I think we have to be careful and thoughtful on how we go through these different ideas. And I'm not saying they can't work, but I feel like they can't work without making other adjustments to make them successful. Because at the end of the day, people have got to get from Williston to Essex, and like, there's no other choice. There's no other bridges over the river. And, there's some just basic things. And so I know at the end of the day, the council is the decision maker on major infrastructure things. I just kind of wanted to put that bug in your head to be like thinking about as we do some of these other improvements. And like I said, there's some great ideas in that report. We have to make sure we don't forget about all the people that have to get to work and school every day. And things change. I mean, I was lucky enough, well, first I worked at the plant here. And then, they sold our group off and moved us to Burlington. But then at least we had hybrid. And then January, they said, oh, we don't like hybrid anymore. Now you need to drive to Burlington every day. And so like suddenly I went from I could ride my bike to work to, well, I only got to drive to Burlington twice a week, to now all of a sudden I'm doing it 5 days a week. So these trends can happen on a dime, just like how so many people worked remote kind of on a dime, right? So we just have to plan the city's infrastructure thinking long-term. So I don't know if there's any comments, but anyway, that was my piece.
I just wanted to throw in there, I don't remember where it went, but when we were first talking about closing off Main Street, that portion, there was a cool little computer model that I think Julie Campoli prepared for us.
So, yeah.
And it proposed like that you could adjust it to the number of cars and everything, and you could see little tiny cars driving around. It's very cool.
I remember that. I watched that.
Yeah. So I'm trying to remember that and whether it accounted for the Crescent Connector or not.
I thought it did.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it accounted for like how many lanes are there and things like that.
Right. I think it was probably more simplistic, but
Yeah.
I'd be curious to see if we could dig that up and if it addressed those kinds of questions, like the size of the vehicles and the turning radius on various corners and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
The draft plan that was presented to us in June still had traffic flowing on Main Street, out to the town, and then from the town to Five Corners, it was just a single lane as opposed to 2 lanes. So there's still that, because they had said that they looked through it and at the one point had talked about it, but realized that that wasn't the best option. So there is still, and I have it, it's on, if you go to the city website, the Connect the Junction project website, the draft plan is available. It's referenced on page 41, which is page 81 of the PDF file, but it's right here. You can see, I'll show you, but you won't be able to see it.
Yeah, no, yep.
Yeah.
Looks familiar.
So it has still traffic flowing on Main Street. It's just reduced the number of lanes.
Yeah, I think there were like different ideas.
Yeah.
Like one was to leave it, one was not, because you have to have options and
Right.
then you pick
Yeah.
ultimately what everyone agrees on. But so, yeah, I read the whole thing
Yeah.
last night.
Yeah. Okay.
And,
So, yeah, keenly aware.
There'll be a quiz later.
okay. I didn't read it that well. So, okay, so just food for thought. And I think there are really a lot of good ideas in there. So
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we don't forget about people that need to be in cars.
Definitely correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we have approved the final, did we?
No, the intent is to be getting public comment now before it's finalized.
Yeah.
There you go. Here's some public comment.
Thank you.
Steve.
Appreciate it.
Steve, I have to ask you, do you still use the trails behind Dunbar Drive?
No,
Okay. I remember when you came to the
correct.
trustees at one point, see if we could take over the trail. Somebody has put in a whole bunch of logs to cover all the wet areas and given people walkways and such. And I thought that had to be Steve.
No, they kind of intentionally blocked off the entrance from South Street, which is how I would enter. So I just
Yeah.
anyway, it wasn't very welcoming.
It's definitely
But
very
maybe
well,
further down. closer
very
to
well
where we are.
traveled at this point, and there's muddy areas, and somebody has taken it upon
Yeah.
themselves to lay down logs.
Like ponching and stuff. Yeah,
It's
no, that's the way to do
wonderful.
it.
So whoever that did that was, thank you for the.
Yeah, I think the area down in your section closer to Dunbar was
Yeah.
better, it's like was more open
Yes, yes.
than the part closer to where I live.
I thought sure that Steve,
It was a good guess.
kind of guy that you are.
You had a question, Brian?
Yeah, Steve, your comment started with you had seen people comment that traffic has been increasing lately, and I was wondering, where did you see that? Or
It
is
was
that
in the
your
report.
comment,
It
or-
was in the draft report.
Okay. Do we actually have numbers do we have numbers from CCPRC or the appropriate place to because your whole argument falls apart if that's not true, right? So, so do we have numbers that the traffic is increasing?
I don't know what they were referencing or what our latest numbers are off the top of my head.
And even if they didn't, if we're building 200 or 300 housing units, there's going to be at least something happen.
Yes.
Theoretically, yes.
They won't be there all the time.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
So I mean, and or they will be, like we build transit-oriented development, it'll be encouraged to use.
Of course, but it won't be 100%.
Sure. Right. Yeah.
It's just by reality, because if someone's driving to work in another community.
No, I definitely get that, and I understand your frustration with being forced to go into the Burlington. That's kind of suck. I'm with you. So, yeah, I'm just curious. Is that, do we get those? Does CCPRC do those calculations when we ask, or when we're trying to do something, or regularly?
There's a number of different counts. There's the traffic numbers, there's the turning movements. Everything we've been looking at lately is more turning movement through Five Corners to figure out if it's working correctly or not. The actual numbers on the roads are partially done by VTrans. I have no idea the level of frequency, if that's an often thing that they do, or no idea the timing. And then CCRPC, I don't believe they do those on a regular basis unless asked.
I can get you I'll look at it this evening and get you the page. It was towards the beginning, that's all I remember.
So, fair enough.
Yeah.
The follow-up question is different if it was your observation. Then.
Yeah, no, it was written in the report, but they didn't quantify it like with an actual number. It was just like things have increased, and they didn't say it doubled, or it was just that it had increased.
Sure.
Is my memory. Yeah.
Fair. But we are doing measurements based on, in order to improve the light flow through 5 corners based on the Crescent connector. Is that correct?
Yes, we did a bunch of data collection to see how the lights were working. There is a plan for how to adjust the lights further based on that data collection. And I am just off of 2 weeks vacation today, so I can't tell you where we are as of late.
And I had mentioned to Jeff Kirshner, I think, about like the minimum green times at 5 corners was raised, and which only is an impact during non-rush hour. And quite a number of years ago, they had dropped the minimum green times. So meaning that if there's only one car waiting to go, the minimum green time, if it's only 5 seconds, meaning that it'll switch to the next time. If the minimum green time is 20 seconds, then there's only one car. That one car goes, and everyone's just sitting there, and there's nothing happening in the intersection, right? And I had made the observation that when they adjusted the timings, they raised the minimum. So like if you go in there in the evening at like 8 o'clock or 8:30, you have to sit there and wait for everything to progress around, and it's really frustrating. Because there's one car in each direction versus, a year ago, it would very quickly get around to you if there was nobody there. And I'd mentioned that to Jeff, and he acknowledged it.
Okay.
Anyway, since you brought that up, so anyway,
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
perfect. Anyway, somebody else go.
I'm gonna go, let's see if there's anybody online, and then I'll come back here. Anybody online? Going once, going twice. I can't get my computer to work here, but Risa.
Thank you. I got it in before the twice. Thank you. I want to piggyback off of what Steve just said about closing Main Street and what's going to end up happening. At the last meeting, I applauded how getting through 5 corners now is not a nightmare because several cars can move. And the other day coming back, I was like, again, this is great. So many cars are moving. When if we close Main Street, that's going to put a whole lot more cars either on Maple or cutting through Lincoln and then to Central, and to get back to Countryside will be really interesting. And the other piece, there are 2 little pieces to this. One is walking is great. I definitely, if all I need from Hannaford's is prescriptions, walking is wonderful. When I have 6 bags, can't do it. Also can't do it in winter. We haven't had the snow, knock on wood, depending on how you look at it, but it could happen anytime. And then part of this is depending upon what the town ends up doing with the Amazon warehouse, our roads could be a nightmare. And do we, as a city council, as a city that would be affected by this, do we get any say in this beyond just paying attention?
I will answer that. No. That's an easy one. No, I know that answer. We don't have any say in the town DRB approval process. I mean, I think we can, as citizens, you of course can give your input and go to those the DRB meetings and just as much as the folks in Heinsberg are giving their input at this point.
Right.
But yeah, we do not have any say in it.
Okay. And then my second thing, not related to this at all, is could we please get an update on how Two Lincoln renovation is progressing? And I heard you're back from 2 weeks, so you might not be able to answer that. But we haven't gotten an update in a while, and it would be wonderful if we can hear a little bit at least. Thank you.
That I can update you on. So things are really looking great over there. It's definitely getting closer, but there's still a lot of parts and pieces to finish up, including the elevator. The elevator is in, but you need an adjuster to come to make sure it's working properly, and then you need the inspector there at the same time, and that's still a couple of day process. And at this point, that is not scheduled until the last week in July. So our current thinking is we are likely moving back over into the Two Lincoln space like mid-August at this point.
Mid-August is great. That's like a month from now.
Well, I think you're really gonna like the entryway. It's really very welcoming, and I think it's gonna be a great space for staff to work, along with giving enough space for residents and non-residents that come into that space for whatever their needs are with the city. They're gonna have a really comfortable space that they can do that business in. So it's great. So far,
Yep.
really looking forward to it. Yeah.
A welcoming space, does that mean there's going to be snacks, or Sam's Ice Cream is going to open up right there? And
Might be some leftover no bake cookies.
I made cookies, so yeah, there might be still there. Who knows? That would be
thank
nice.
you.
Thank you.
Well, I think what Marcus is talking about, Risa, if I may, is that I don't know what the last time you were in there, but if you came in from the Brownell side, it looked like you were in a hallway and it was a bulletin board. But that's been widened, and there's going to be a little there's a high shelf with people sitting there back there, so that in an open window. There's two open windows, one for the clerk and one for
Zoning administrator.
right. So when they're talking about it being more welcoming, I think it's so much better than these buildings were glued together in the 1890s, right? Which is the impression you got when you walked in previously. So I think it's going to be great. Has anybody heard from Ella at the Essex Reporter? I know when Regina, when you gave me my first tour of it, Ella was there and taking pictures, and I mean that's one of the reasons I haven't posted any pictures, is because I thought the Essex Reporter was going to take care of it. Or
She did a whole article.
She did do a whole story.
Yep.
Great. Well, then good. Then yeah, it should be So I guess there are pictures out there. So cool.
Yep.
Will there be any kind of open house or walkthrough or something where it's like before we're actually interrupting all the business that's going on?
We'll try to figure out when to do that, but certainly we will have an open house and people can come through the whole space.
Great, thank you so much.
All about the party, for sure.
Yeah. And one last thing just to add, it will start to look a little bit different as they start wrapping up. So I believe as of today, the plan is that the construction trailer in the front will go away as of Friday. So you'll start to see some different things, but still lots of details to get sorted out.
Exciting. All right, bringing it back to the room. Come on, guys. Yeah.
The ice is
Arm
broken.
wrestle. Whatever. If you could tell us your name first.
Of course. So I'm John O'Brien. I live over on Mansfield, and I also get to hang out once a month with the Bike Walk Advisory Committee. But of course, I'm here for myself, expressing my opinions tonight. But they do have to do with biking and walkability for the most part. So just kind of building on the Connect the Junction thing, I love the project. I've put some comments out there, participated in that, and I just want to say, so everyone is aware, that across every study, cities that improve their bike infrastructure see reduction in traffic. When you give thorough throughways for bike and alternate transportation, the number of cars on the road do decrease. So looking to make sure that everyone in every form of transportation has their path improves the experience for everyone. Which is why I love the idea of, you know, the whole section of Pearl Street finally being connected. What I'm specifically here to talk about tonight, though, is the northwestern quadrant of the city and the anticipation of increased traffic as the consolidation with the district schools and the one elementary school in the city now being located at Hiawatha. So with looking over the connected junction, we saw that it was possible that some improvements might be beginning in fall 2025, which is going to be concurrent with the experience of many new cars in that neighborhood. So I just think as we move in that direction, we want to be ensuring that any disruptions or improvements that are happening in the Route 15 corridor are anticipating additional traffic trying to circumvent any delays going directly down West Street and hitting all that additional traffic twice a day. Sure. Now, the other thing that I'm hearing as a community member, not even with my work as on Bike Walk, is parents who aren't sure how they can get to school without driving. Of course, we live in a state that experiences a real winter, and people often will be driving. And it's also an elementary school, so we're driving younger children who aren't walking themselves or biking themselves. But there's a lot of concern that there aren't designated well researched or well practiced routes for those that choose to bike or walk through this corridor. And so I think as we move in that direction, as we move towards the fall, I would love to see the city willing to quickly try out trial projects, throw paint down, designate certain routes to be the lower traffic bike friendly routes or recommended routes that it's based on real data that we have. And of course, naturally going from the best and most recent data that we have on that. So that parents like myself who might be interested in seeking other forms of transportation can confidently choose how we're going to get over there. There will be strength in numbers, and in some situations it will be a bit of a leap of faith and designating something in order to encourage usage and possibly in order to discourage car usage, in order for specific routes to be known as the ones where you will be encountering slow-moving families who are in the road because we don't have bike lanes or wide sidewalks or shoulders of any kind in that whole quadrant. So I think as we are approaching that date, just thinking of the big picture, the ways that we might be able to mitigate these two forces that are going to be putting a lot of traffic and strain in that area. Not even for residents, people who are used to dealing with those aging roads and the traffic patterns that they have been used to that are about to get turned up on their head. So that's my big focus as we head into this. But I'm curious if that's something that you guys are hearing, or if there's anything, any reactions that you have right off the bat from that.
I'm just wondering, like, we have heard a lot of neighbors, especially in the area of Hiawatha Drive or Avenue, neighbors concerned about the traffic volume for sure. Would the bike walk committee, and I know you're one person, not asking you to speak for them, but has any consideration been given to starting up a bike bus?
So as I actually walked up here tonight, somebody on the sidewalk biking with their kids was like, "We got to talk about bike bus." So there is an interest in that, but when we brought it up kind of informally, even before meetings, just talking about like, oh well, like this is a possible thing, and there is a lot of community interest in it. We're lacking the strength in numbers or the designation of those corridors. Because when we consider going from Countryside or even over here at Maple Street to get over there, even with the bike lane on the Crescent Connector, getting spit out onto Park Street, and it's a strip on there. There's a slow incline up south or west when you're coming from that area, or up south and I guess Iroquois is the other one there. I think we're all kind of looking for someone to take the lead and just like decide like where we're gonna go with that. And I know people have expressed, other cities have had, at least for opening weeks, assistance from public services like police, being there with flashing lights and maybe designating someone there to escort, just so there's a little bit more clarity. There could be a little bit more public outreach and letting folks know that this will be happening, so that maybe they're avoiding that route.
Right.
But it's a sticky corridor, and that's why we're all working on the Connect the Junction as it is. It's because there's no clear way there. So it's kind of like, do we build the house first, or do we start living in the house that we have? Yeah, but there is a lot of community interest in the bike bus, so it probably will just be a grassroots thing. I know I'll be reaching out to some of the folks on the school board to see if we might be able to get their participation in that, so we have they know at least when we'll be arriving. So
I think they also intend to work with local motion as well, so that could be a good avenue also.
there's a lot of documentation and history of communities doing that, so they have been providing us some of the guidelines for the successful bike buses that have been implemented.
Okay.
You said they locomotion has?
Yeah.
You want me to go check? Go ahead,
Because,
Tim.
I mean, I like the suggestion a lot, and I'm picturing, having done a lot of triathlons and road races, right? Part of your proposal involves sort of trying out part of the Connect the Junction, which is turning part of Main and Park Street into bike lane and narrowing them, right? So it has the effect that I like that it has the effect of kind of trial run. But my first concern is about marketing, but I think you hit the nail on the head with using the school board to do that, right? So because I don't have kids, so I don't know. I don't have the mailing list to the people who would be on the bike bus, right? But you do, I think, number one, right? Unless you do on the bike walk committee. So, right?
Well, there's been a few parents in the community who have expressed interest in coordinating that.
Okay.
So it probably would be a grassroots kind of email-based list that we would be operating from there.
Fair enough. And I've seen many ends of triathlons and marathons, right? I'm picturing a row of cones, to close down this lane on Park, and maybe all the way to the turn on South Street or something as part of this experiment. But I got a quarter that says we don't have that many cones. But someone like 802 timing or maybe locomotion might. So we would certainly might own this. I don't know.
I'll provide some valuable insight as a resident of Hiawatha for 20 years. Nama. Sorry.
Wow.
I moved a little bit. It's all one street. It just changes names as it turns. I wish you the best of luck. I will tell you that right now traffic is a disaster on that road twice a day. And it will not get better with an increase of 100 extra kids coming into that school. And there is no one more entitled than the parent dropping that particular child off at that school. I am not kidding you. It is awful. I will say that Public Works does a great job. If anyone's feeling adventurous in salting Nama Hill, if you want to come up from South Street, up the hill, the back way. But other than that, your entrance in is South Summit to West Street to Hiawatha. And the school board does a nice job. They have crossing guards at South Summit and West, at South Summit and Hiawatha, and at the crosswalk on Hiawatha. But it is going to be an absolute challenge, and it is something that we have heard nonstop, and I continue to hear nonstop. I believe that we've been told that I will call it the school resource officer, but I know that is not the right term. We'll be there for the first bit to try and re-educate a little bit about traffic laws. But it's a challenge even today. It was a challenge. It's been a challenge for the 22 years that I've lived on that road. I cannot drive down Hiawatha between 7:15 in the morning and 8 o'clock, or from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock. I can't do it. And so those roads are narrow. They're essentially two-way traffic. They're it is a huge challenge. So I'm interested to see what comes out of it, because it is right now not functional. And when they add another 100 kids to this mix, it is going to be an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, the just in looking at maps and considering that from all the community feedback that we hear with Connect the Junction, people want to be able to walk and they want to be able to bike. So just looking at maps, you wonder at what points could we be having people crossing over from the 15 corridor across the tracks by some means on foot or on bike or along the rail corridor in a safer way than having to face what is already a nightmare situation for people in vehicles, because bikes don't want to be on those roads either.
I see on the afternoons I'm down there to watch traffic and watch kids leave. You see, children go off on the sidewalk and they're, met by the crossing guards at every opportunity, and they do a nice job of getting to South Summit Street. And then once they're on the South Summit Street sidewalks, they're kind of on their own, because the school district eliminated the crossing guard position at Pearl and South Summit and just left it for the rapid flashing beacons and traffic control lights. And so it's kind of, once they're out of there, it's, so I'd love to see an answer to it, but I don't know if we have that answer.
I can tell you, supposedly there is going to be a shuttle driving from Summit to Hiawatha.
I also heard that possibility. So
I thought they did away with that.
It was mentioned a while ago.
My understanding was that they did away with that because they didn't want to lead to the confusion of,
Yeah. But when the school board is back, we'll be there.
Well, I will say, because I am a resident of Hiawatha.
I moved for a minute, I'm sorry.
But no, and I agree with what's been said. I agree with what Tim has said here, because look, I used to live at 37, which is right across the street from the school, and it was a nightmare. And thankfully, my work, I left a little after the school, after the kids arrived, and I got home later than the kids got in. But on any other day, yeah, it was an absolute nightmare. I can tell you now that I'm at 2, what I see is the people who speed on our street are parents taking their kids to school. That's who I see most, who are screaming, coming around there, because you can hear it as they're making the turn off west, and then gassing it up as they're trying to get to the other end of Hiawatha. Shocks me to know that, they're in a residential neighborhood, they've got kids in the car, and for whatever reason, no consideration about the fact that we're in a neighborhood here taking our kids to a school. There are kids walking to school. It drives me nuts. But that aside, I do believe that this is one of those things, and we talked about committees in last couple of meetings, and I'm not saying that this requires a committee. What I'm saying is, out of that discussion, there was a lot of talk about having some grassroots groups that were taken care of or focused on some of the things within the city, and I think based on where we are resource-wise, based on where we are with everything, this feels like this could be one of those moments where, and maybe this is where Bike Walk helps take the lead on it by figuring out and helping to figure out what can we do, or who can we get within the community to help us put these kinds of things together, whether it's finding the adults who are willing to give some time to go stand on those corners to help, again, create safer biking paths, walking paths, to accentuate what's already being done with crossing guards from the school. Maybe that's one way. I agree with what Brian said. I think that there are definitely ways we can test some things and try some things. So I'm absolutely open to that. So whether it's cones, whether it's something else, who knows? But I'm looking forward to some of the plans that we've talked about with the Connect the Junction, because I think it really is going to help to create some of that better space. West Street, to me, is a nightmare because of the fact that it's so narrow. It's not appropriate to have the car and a bike on the same thing. I'll be honest, and I had this conversation recently during block party. And thank you, Amber, for coming over and hanging out, and Tim for stopping by. Appreciate it. But there was a conversation around, again, the sidewalks we have. And we have on West Street, you may be familiar with this, from Hiawatha down toward Whitcomb Woods. It's all asphalt. It's like bike path. It's not quite bike path width and bike path structure, but it's
Type.
it's that type. And then you got concrete on the other side from Hiawatha the other way. Personally, I think it would be great if we had a continuous biking, walking path all down all down West Street to accommodate all that for two big reasons. Better walk and bike access for the kids, safety for other bikers on that road, and then of course, watching those seniors come out of Whitcomb Woods with their various, ambulatory devices and seeing them being able to traverse that sidewalk because it doesn't have all the bumps and bruises, that concrete sometimes has with, it's just great. I know that there are challenges. Matter of fact, we've had these debates offline. Tim and I have talked about this a bit offline. And I know that asphalt, technically speaking, doesn't last as long as concrete. Mm-hmm. There is an overall increasing cost by going that particular way. There's a certain part of me, though, that thinks it might be worth it because the end result means greater safety, greater, access for everyone along a very busy route. So, and especially now with the adjustment that school has done to draw more kids into our neighborhood to go to Hiawatha, I think it'd be a great time to think about how we path that out. And I hope that the Bike Walk Committee will. And again, I'm saying this is myself, this is not a council directive, but that committee's there. I'd love for them to take a look at that and think about that and figure out whether or not that might be reasonable and feasible and something that they would recommend.
Mm-hmm.
So
Steve, can you come up to the mic? I just want to make sure that your
that's
voice is
fine. I bike commuted for 27, 28 years on West Street, so I'm extremely familiar with it. I've never let my kids go on the street. They always went on the sidewalk. You can do concrete paths. Well, I've been in other communities, not Vermont, where it was a bike path that was concrete in excellent shape. So
Yep.
the surface, it's all about how you do it and
Yep.
the width and everything else. And then it lasts longer at least.
That'd be great.
Yep.
Yeah.
But, so don't discount it just because of how a normal sidewalk in the community
Yeah.
looks. But when I was on the board 25 years ago, we talked about at the time, how do you get class 2 roads to have sidewalks on both sides? So we added the part on South Street when I was on the board to have the second side from West Street to Park. But it's a challenge to get it on the other side. But I like the idea of if you could do something like a wider, 6, 7, whatever feet you could do. The challenge is some of the old houses that are put in there aren't set back far from the road. So it's like you're in a box all the way around because the road's not wide and there's also not a lot of room between the curb and some of those houses. So, but I think any of those ideas are all good. And then it probably doesn't fly, but I come with all the ways to get to Pearl Street. You go through Roscoe Court, you have the informal crossing, but you're crossing a railroad. You want kids crossing off railroad track unassisted. Same thing going through the A&R property where it's at least paved on both sides of the railroad. That's another way, like for that whole neighborhood. Next to the fairgrounds there. There's, and there was all kinds of reasons, why things weren't more formalized, but it's like, those are the kinds of things where if people are coming down Roscoe Court, there's not a lot of traffic on that. Or if people are coming through the A&R property, there's not a lot of traffic on that. And then at least you're taking people, like you would, and I think you were suggesting this, to not have a ton of people on class 1 and class 2 roads if we can avoid it. And designating some of those class 3 roads in Indian Acres or places like that to kind of maneuver around. But anyway, I think it's all good stuff. I wanted to, some of the stuff that we've all talked about here is more longer term.
Yeah.
Yep.
But, and there's, short-term stuff right now, but I'm amazed. I think it would be great if a lot of people from this side of Five Corners, traversed. Because I look at sometimes I'm the neighborhood next Wilkinson and Tyler, so not on Hiawatha and Nama, like Tim and Marcus, but I'm like just like the next stone's throw to the west. And I'm amazed how many people, it's like, how can you not walk to Hiawatha or ride your bike? And I see a few people because we're right next to the one crosswalk.
And there's a rec path.
Yeah, so anyone coming up Wilkinson is gonna take the crosswalk in front of my house, and I only see a couple people. And maybe there's no kids in our neighborhood. I find that hard to believe.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so I think it'd be great if people came from even farther. But I'm like thinking, how do we get my neighborhood 100%?
Yeah.
So
I think one of the things to also think about, John, is we had this discussion at the Capital Committee meeting with, we were allotting 25% of the funds towards sidewalk improvements. So that was based on the CCRPC study that was done, but that doesn't have to be set in stone. So I think if there is this opportunity for maybe several committees to be working together. So if you guys identify as bike walk a prime route to get from point A to point B to get the kids to Hiawatha, and that needs some significant improvements, then, maybe there's a discussion about looking at that particular street. I mean, it's also entirely surprises me how expensive sidewalks are for a very small portion of main streets, costing us, $500,000. So it would be a long-term project,
Both sides, though.
but
I mean,
right. Yeah, it's true. True. But just something to think about. I mean, the money's already allotted for this year, but future years.
yeah, good to know there. I guess the one other thing that I think could be helpful in this circumstance is the city is considering, I know that the city planner's been working on updating the traffic calming policy and giving the community just more ability to propose means of doing that. And I think campaigning to make sure that people are aware of that, so that they can be, when they're seeing, where I am at Mansfield, people like just rocketing through there on the way to the park. They let folks know, and that's a great candidate for the intermittent green marks that are designating, this is also an area that you must be sharing with bikes. Just putting more paint on the pavement does make people pay a little bit more attention. In theory, by the numbers that I've seen, it works, but your mileage may vary.
I believe we may or may not be talking about that in the relatively very near future,
Go.
like in 2 weeks.
Well said. May or may not.
May or may not. I'm an attorney. I don't commit to anything. So. Elaine,
Soon, for sure.
did you have a comment that you wanted to make?
Oh, I just wanted to throw out whether or not there's been any exploration of making Hiawatha Avenue one way during certain times of the day.
No. Interesting. I don't know.
Not that I'm aware of, but that doesn't mean
It's an
it's
interesting
never been
question.
thought of.
Yeah.
That's measurable.
Yeah.
We've done it before with I don't know the name of the street, but the one that goes into Global, the intersection of South.
River.
Yeah, River Street.
Yeah.
That's for years was one way out, and then the time would change. It would
Be one way
the
out.
opposite direction.
Yeah.
So, like, could we do something like that?
Interesting.
didn't they, I thought they at least told people or encouraged people to come up Nama side and then come out that.
Yeah, well, telling people
They
that
have not
means nothing.
encouraged anything in a long time. And I will tell you that I've had the conversations with residents that have lived on that street for 60 years, and they've gone through the whole gauntlet of the road's been one way. We've had parking permits for residents only. We've done it all, and we're right back to not having anything. So like I said, if I'm home, I don't leave my house during those hours because I can't get where I need to be.
God forbid you were in a fire truck.
It's not.
And he's got lights.
It doesn't.
Yeah,
It doesn't
there's
matter.
all cars
I,
right now.
I have gone through that road with my lights on and had people just stare at me like, "What are you doing?" You can't, you know,
Yeah.
so.
Well, thank you for the comments. I see that.
To have the conversation.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. It was a very good conversation to have. I do see that Risa has her hand up, but I do also see that Stephen has his hand up and he hasn't talked yet. So I'll come back to you. I am mindful of the fact that it's 7:20. So we've got about 10 minutes left in the public comment. So Stephen, take it away.
Cool, thank you. So I'm Stephen Willie Padnos. Lots of interesting stuff going on. So I so speaking about the traffic light, or the traffic light, right, at the five corners. In addition to the minimum time being maybe extended, it seems like it used to be pretty smart. So it would skip directions that didn't have anyone at them, and now it doesn't seem to do that. Or maybe it's just not quite as smart now. So I don't know if that's something that can be looked into. Maybe it's AI and it's too artificial right now. So we have to go through the five corners, right? We're on Taft Street, so anytime we want to go anywhere that's not, shopping or going up on the mountain for a hike or something, we're pretty much going through the five corners, and it doesn't seem to have gotten easier. It seems to be harder, but I don't carry a stopwatch, so anyway, just minor thing. There's been a lot of talk about cycling, walking, the big development plan, and I agree with most of what's been said. I mean, I'm definitely concerned about increases in traffic. Part of the plan, I think it talks about adding something like 4,500, or some large amount of new residences, right, over the next X number of years. And, that's a lot of traffic. We'll be adding cars, and if we're reducing paths for those cars, it's not going to help. So at least it's part of the plan, but it's definitely a concern for me. And biking, as it has been brought up, it's great in the summer. It's not as great in the spring, and really not enough, winter. So, on the bike path thing, by the way, that Marcus brought up, my engineer hat comes on whenever I'm listening to things, and there are permeable pavers, which may be something that could be used. I know they're expensive, but I'm one of those buy once, cry once kind of people. So if and as Marcus pointed out, also if it's more expensive, but it does what you need, when you're soliciting bids for something like this, there can be essentially a smoothness requirement, and concrete isn't going to do it unless you talk to people in Wisconsin who use concrete a lot, and they also have cold weather. So there might be something going on there. I think it's not actually the surface material; it's the base and sub base that really are going to control frost heaves and that kind of thing. So let's see. Sorry, I took down some notes and now I'm just kind of running through them. Actually, just a kind of a minor thing. There's a right of way between Taft Street and Athens Street that goes over that sort of creek that's part of the tech center property. And there's a bridge on there that is not really, it wouldn't qualify it to be called a bridge anymore. I think some rains and things have eroded the supports on one side. I don't know if that's something that was just put up by somebody, or if that's actually supposed to be maintained by the city, or if I build a new one because it's all fun to do woodwork. Is somebody going to come after me if anyone gets hurt? So do you know if that's something that, if it's just a right of way, or if that's actually a maintained thing, or if you need more info to know what it is?
Yeah, I do not know the answer. I can certainly look into that.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Yeah, I'm just curious. And as I say, it would be fun to build a bridge. It would be the first one I've done, but then again, it would be the first one I've done. So,
if you don't mind, because I was on Taft this weekend, and again, it was brought up that right of way that kind of goes through the properties by your house over toward Drury, as I recall, and then it goes across down by 17, something like that. But anyway, but there's markers there to kind of identify where a path may go, but there's no path, and I don't know what the plan is there. If that was a school plan, that could part of their design because that's the neighborhood that they own, or if that was part of our plan.
Yeah, so that's like, that's the south side, right? South side Taft Street, and that the path used to be pretty well defined and various people would mow it. I'm not sure if it was ever done by the city, but or the village at the time. But it was typically mowed, and then the tech school keeps building more houses, and so now it's kind of between houses. It used to be after the end of the last house, and the part that I'm talking about is actually across the street from that, heading northward toward Athens. But yeah, I don't know. I think that there is still space there. Like there are no buildings encroaching on it, on that part of it. But I don't think that it's been trimmed for years. So yeah, I'm not
And
sure.
based on the conversation I had this weekend, it sounded like residents, because again, it's just grass right now. So the residents who happen to live there are kind of taking care of it as part of their property. I mean, again, it's just markers on the stone markers that are identifying that something is going to go here, but there's nothing else. So, but I keep hearing about this right away, and I just don't know who's got that and whether or not that's something that we were going to be doing at some point, or whether the school's going to do it. So,
Yeah.
just
Don't know.
curious.
Don't know that answer either.
Okay.
Can look into it.
And you're lucky if you can mow, as opposed to needing to take a brush trimmer or a chainsaw through there, because of the trees and bushes and stuff. So, yeah. Well, so I have one other thing that's kind of a comment and a question. So being on Taft, which is next to Route 15, there is a lot of noise. There are a large number of cars and motorcycles that are unbelievably loud. And it's pretty clear it's on purpose, because you got people that are basically, scream for a while. They slam the accelerator and then they let off to get the backfires. Which I guess rudeness isn't against the rules, but it's really annoying. So what I'm wondering is whether we actually have a noise ordinance right now. I mean, I know there was some discussion about harmonizing with the town, and also, there were some questions about that. And of course, it was discussed quite a bit with respect to the fairgrounds. But I'm wondering if we have any ordinances, or if there is or will be any enforcement of that. Because I can't imagine it's, well, I know it's not nice, but I'm not sure if it's not allowed. I guess I'll put it that way.
So I actually went to the 4th of July event with my neighbor, who proceeded to be like, I have to go talk to the police department. So a little freaked me out here, but that was her concern. She was like, there are a lot of vehicles that are going down Pearl Street, because we live on Pearl Street, that are just obnoxiously loud. And what are we doing to enforce that? And basically the officer told her, like, it's hard to enforce, which is, a given, because like they do carry a decibel reader or whatnot in their vehicle. So they could try to clock to see if that person is exceeding the decibel limit in the sound ordinance. But you also have to catch them doing it. So all of those things combined makes it very difficult. But at the end of the day, she said, if it's happening, please feel free to call us and we will try to send somebody out. But I kind of read between the lines, which was like, I don't think we're going to race out, but if we happen to be out patrolling and we're in the area, then we would. So
Right.
I think that's
Right.
kind of
And-
that's the position that they've taken. I mean, this was one officer telling her this, but I
Yeah,
hear
and-
you. I hear you, because we hear it all the time on Pearl Street.
Right, right. And you guys are in, what is it? You're in the 35 zone or the 30 zone? But coming down from 45 speed limit,
Yeah, we're
Right.
right in front. I'm in front of the old Big Lots.
right, right. Okay, yes.
Actually, I wouldn't even say that might be 25. It's
Yeah,
20.
so it's 25. Okay, great. Yeah. So we're,
Verbal tune cars.
no, yes.
I believe it's been verified. The chief will be doing department head brief at our next meeting on the 23rd. So
Yeah.
that can be, Stephen, if you want to join us then,
Please come back.
you can either ask the question directly of the chief or, I'm taking a note so that I can ask it if you're not here. So thank you.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah. It's I know it's hard to catch someone, especially when they're revving up probably past the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, because that's the only way to make your engine so loud is to speed up. So anyway, I think,
Comment for sure.
sure. All right. Well, thanks. I think that was pretty much everything I had.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, we are at 7:30. Risa, did you have a quick comment that you wanted to?
Very quick,
Okay, go
I
ahead.
promise. They cycle through countryside also, and they're here just long enough to make sure everybody is awake at 3 a.m. But yeah, very kind of them. Twice, the last 2 times I was on South Street heading towards Park Street, there were tractor trailers coming at me that if I wasn't able to quickly left onto Nama, I would have been off the road. So there definitely needs to be some sort of traffic calming along there. It's really scary. Thank you.
All right, Sheila, I'm gonna let you
Wrapping it up.
close it up here.
You didn't want to be first, so relax.
You'll like this because I wanted to say thank you so much for doing this, inviting people to come and talk for however long we wanted to. Because I think people are often put off by a 2-minute, especially if there's no conversation. I know that's the way it is at the school board meetings. Nobody likes to go to those because you don't feel heard at all. So thank you very much for doing this. This morning when I was walking to the park with the kids, I did notice something that I thought maybe you could address. The Crescent Connector, I'm not a fan. As a pedestrian, it is a horrible place to cross. We've almost been hit 3 times since summer started because cars come flying down and don't pay any attention and they just want to turn right and not stop. So it's dangerous, but the thing that possibly you could address, because nobody can stop these cars, is the fact that that crosswalk button does not have a noise. It doesn't beep when you cross. And that, at the 5 corners, at my street, South Summit, most of them do, and that one does not.
Okay.
So I didn't know if that was something that you could possibly change, because at least that's something else that makes people more aware. And I do know there's a visually impaired woman who I see walking all the time.
Yeah.
And I know that is a way that visually impaired people know when it's safe to cross.
Yeah.
So
Is that an ADA compliance requirement?
I do not know that answer.
We're gonna look into
Find
it.
out.
okay, thanks.
We appreciate it.
Is
And
there one of those no right turn lights, the bright lights that come up when?
Yep.
There are.
Yeah, there
There sure
There is.
And that's
it
at
doesn't
least,
stop people in.
We had a nickel for every time.
that's at least the second crosswalk button that's been installed there. So maybe there was something that happened when the initial one got hit and it had to be replaced. So
We'll check into it.
Okay, thanks. I
Welcome.
appreciate it. And thank you again.
Thank you
for
for
doing
coming.
Thank you, Sheila.
thank you.
Thank you to everybody for attending. This was a trial, so we appreciate you guys participating for sure. And those who are online, sorry you don't get any cookies, but those are here. Please take cookies because I certainly do not need them or want to take them home. So
Thank you.
we do have one consent item on the agenda, which is the Liquor Control Commission. So if I can entertain a motion to approve the consent.
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. And then we are not doing anything else, I guess. So
Counselor comment?
it says none on the agenda, so I'm
No
no comments. You're not allowed to have any comments. Yeah, none. Especially Marcus is what
Save
it
them
says.
for the next meeting, Marcus.
Nice. I see how this is working out.
Probably,
I
didn't
think
need to
it's
say none.
I
sorry.
think it's okay. It's okay. Did you have a comment?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I wanted to give my personal thanks to Nick Meyer, who's on our tree committee, because of the fact that I was on Taft Street, seeing someone who I knew, and I've been around and was having a great conversation when I ran into library trustee Dottie Bergendahl.
She lives on Town Street.
And she unfortunately had half a tree come down during the last storm. And we were talking about it, and my first thought was, let me go see who I could email from the tree committee that could help, because she was feeling very uncomfortable about it, and she was having difficulty finding anybody to help take down the rest of this tree if necessary, because it might come down on her house. And I went to the website. I saw Nick's name. He had his phone number there. I gave him a call. He answered. He talked to me. He was totally willing to go over to the house, look at the tree. I took pictures. He gave a little report after those pictures. But, again, this emphasized to me very strongly what I think the community, what the village feel is, which is it's the people. It's the community and how they come together to help each other. And so big thanks to Nick on that. And the other half of the tree got taken care of by other people that we know and are connected to. So it all worked out. But, again, it was a great moment to see that happen. And recently, I'll also say, there's been a couple of structure fires. I have seen the fire department jump into action, take care of these things quickly with great professionalism, and I really appreciate the work that they're doing. So again, I want to say thank you. And Amber, thank you for suggesting this, because we weren't planning on having a meeting at all. And I think this was very successful. I hope that more people will come and attend and participate, because this was a great opportunity to have that discussion. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Gina? All right, so before I entertain a motion to adjourn, I'm just going to kind of reiterate that this was, this is the first time we did this, but this is not hopefully the last time that we're going to do this. We do want to encourage folks to come to future events, and to always feel free to reach out to us. Our contact information is on the website, on the city's website. So now I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of